Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The night was perfect, or so it seemed. The Cape Town sky was a goddamn masterpiece, stars glittering like diamonds scattered across black velvet. The air smelled of jasmine and expensive champagne, and the soft hum of a jazz quartet floated over the cliffside venue where South Africa's elite mingled with global power players. At the center of it all stood Celeste Morgan, 41, a black woman who'd clawed her way to the top of the tech world as the CEO of Morgan Tech. Her white wedding gown hugged her curves like it was painted on the silk, catching the moonlight as she faced Julian Voss, 31, the golden boy heir to the Voss global real estate empire. His black tuxedo was sharp enough to cut glass, and his green eyes sparkled with a mix of nerves and adoration. They were seconds away from forever. The priest, a silver-haired man with a voice like warm honey, raised his hands. If anyone objects to this union, speak now, or forever hold your peace. The crowd held its breath. Then, like a fucking bomb going off, a woman's voice sliced through the silence. I do. He's a goddamn liar. Gasps rippled through the guests. Heads whipped toward the back of the venue, where a figure in a crimson dress stormed forward, her heels clicking like gunshots on the stone path. Isabelle Laurent, 32. A French investor with a reputation for ruthlessness, and a face that could stop traffic, clutched a stack of papers in her manicured hand. Her dark eyes burned with fury as she pointed at Julian. This bastard's been playing you, Celeste. He funded a project to sabotage your company, and you're about to marry his lying ass. The crowd erupted in whispers. A tech mogul dropped his champagne flute, shattering it on the ground. Celeste's grip on her bouquet tightened, the roses trembling as she turned to Julian, her gaze sharp enough to draw blood. What the hell is this, Voss? Her voice was low, controlled, but every syllable dripped with betrayal. Julian's face drained of color. He raised his hands, palms out like a man facing a firing squad. Celeste. I swear to God, it's bullshit. She's making this shit up. His voice cracked, desperation creeping in as he shot a glare at Isabelle. What the fuck is your problem, Laurent? Isabelle smirked, tossing her hair. My problem, I'm saving her from you, you spineless prick. She thrust the papers forward, but Celeste didn't even glance at them. Her eyes stayed locked on Julian, searching for the truth. The jazz band faltered the saxophone, letting out a sad wail before going silent. The guests leaned forward, some pulling out phones, no doubt ready to live-stream the drama. Celeste's best friend, Aaliyah Grant, stood frozen at the bridal party's side, her mouth half open, like she wanted to cuss someone out, but didn't know where to start. The priest cleared his throat, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Celeste stepped closer to Julian, her gown rustling like a whisper of war. You got 3 seconds to explain, or I'm walking out of here, and you'll never see me again. Her voice was a blade, and the entire venue felt the cut. Julian's shoulders slumped, but his eyes never left hers. I love you, Celeste. I'd rather die than hurt you. Whatever she's got, it's a lie. His voice softened, almost breaking. You know me. You know me. The tension was suffocating, like the air itself was holding its breath. Would Celeste believe him? Would she tear those papers apart or tear him apart? The moment hung there, electric and raw, a snapshot of a love story on the edge of collapse. But to understand how they got here, how a black tech queen and a cocky heir ended up in this shitstorm of a wedding, you've got to go back to where it all began. Back to a flight, a shitty sandwich, and a spark that lit a fire neither of them saw coming. 3 years earlier, Celeste Morgan, 38, strode into the first-class cabin of Stratus Air Flight 9117, New York to Geneva. Her navy suit was tailored to perfection, hugging her tall frame like it was designed by God himself. Her curly hair was pulled into a sleek bun, and her Hermes bag gleamed under the cabin's soft lights. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone else feel underdressed, underprepared, and a little bit intimidated. As the founder of Morgan Tech, a company revolutionizing AI and data security, she was used to the sidelong glances, some admiring, some skeptical, some just plain racist. But today she didn't give a damn. She was headed to Geneva to close a billion-dollar deal, and all she wanted was a smooth flight and her pre-ordered lobster bisque. She settled into seat 1A, the prime spot with the best view, and opened her tablet to review contracts. The cabin smelled of leather and champagne, and the hum of wealth buzzed around her white dudes, in bespoke suits, sipping vintage wine, a couple of influencers snapping selfies. But in seat 2B, a different kind of energy caught her eye. Julian Voss, 28, lounged like he owned the plane. His blonde hair was artfully messy. His green eyes twinkled with mischief, and his custom blazer screamed money. He was the heir to Voss Global, a real estate empire that owned half the skylines in New York and Dubai. Most people saw him as a spoiled rich kid coasting on his family's billions, but there was a sharpness to him, a hunger to be more than his last name. When Celeste walked in, he nearly choked on his champagne. "Holy shit," he muttered to himself, "she's a goddamn queen." The flight was smooth until it wasn't. A flight attendant, Becky Whitmore, blonde and fake smiley, approached Celeste with a tray that looked like it belonged in a gas station. A cold chicken sandwich, wilted lettuce spilling out, and a plastic cup of water. No silverware, no class. "Sorry, ma'am," Becky said, her tone as sincere as a used car salesman. "System's fucked up. Your meal didn't make it." Celeste's jaw tightened. She'd pre-ordered her lobster bisque and prime steak a week ago, confirmed it twice, and she wasn't just any passenger. She was a Diamond Plus member, with a decade of first-class flights under her belt. This wasn't a mistake. It was a slap in the face. She leaned forward, her voice calm but deadly. "You're telling me the system forgot me? That's some bullshit, Becky." Becky shrugged, her smile thinning. "It happens. Enjoy your sandwich." She turned away, dismissing Celeste like she was nobody. Julian, watching from 2B, felt his blood boil. "What the actual fuck?" he muttered. He'd seen enough entitled service in his life to know this wasn't random. Celeste was the only black woman in the cabin, and the way Becky's eyes slid over her screamed prejudice. He called out loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "Yo, Becky, this ain't economy class. Fix your shit and get the lady her meal." A few passengers snickered. Becky's face turned tomato red and she stammered, "I'll check again, sir." She scurried off, clearly rattled. Celeste glanced at Julian, one eyebrow raised, half annoyed, half amused. "I don't need a white knight, kid," she said, her voice dry as a desert. Julian grinned, unfazed. "Not a knight, just a guy who hates shitty service. Name's Julian Voss, by the way." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "And you're—" What some kind of tech goddess, Celeste snorted, but the corner of her mouth twitched. "Celeste Morgan. And you're a pain in the ass." "Guilty as charged," he said, raising his champagne glass. "But a charming one, right?" She shook her head, turning back to her tablet. But the spark was there, a flicker of something neither of them could ignore. Julian, never one to let a moment pass, signaled another flight attendant, Daniel, and whispered something. Minutes later, Daniel placed a flute of champagne in front of Celeste with a note, "To the Queen of First Class. Screw the sandwich." Celeste read it, her lips curving into a reluctant smile. She glanced at Julian, who winked like he'd just won the lottery. "Nice try, kid," she said, pushing the glass aside. "I don't drink before landing." "Fair," Julian said, leaning back. "But I'm not giving up that easy." The rest of the flight passed quietly. Celeste sent a quick message to her assistant, Aaliyah. "Check out this asshole flight attendant." Flight 917, Becky Whitmore. She didn't need to make a scene. She'd let the system handle it. By the time the plane touched down in Geneva, Stratus Air's HR was already reviewing Becky's file, and she'd be suspended within a week. For Celeste, it was just another Tuesday, another small battle in a lifetime of proving she belonged. As she stepped off the plane, Julian caught up to her in the terminal, his carry-on slung over one shoulder. "Hey, Queen of Seat 1A, he called, jogging to keep pace. "You ever let anyone buy you a drink? You know, to celebrate crushing that deal. You're obviously gonna crush." Celeste stopped, turning to face him. Her eyes scanned him, cocky, charming, and way too young. But there was something genuine in his grin, something that made her pause. "Your trouble, Voss," she said, her voice low. "Do something worth a damn with your life, and maybe I'll think about that drink." Julian watched her walk away, her heels clicking like a metronome. "Oh, I'm gonna do a hell of a lot more than that," he muttered, a plan already forming in his head. That shitty sandwich was just the beginning. It was the spark that lit a fire, one that would burn through years of drama, heartbreak, and love so fierce it'd shake the world. But how did they go from a first-class feud to a wedding crash that had everyone losing their minds? And what the hell was Isabel's deal? Was Julian really hiding something? Or was this another twist in a story that never played by the rules? If that wedding bombshell just blew your freaking mind, you're not alone. This is only the start of Celeste and Julian's wild ride, and trust me, it gets crazier. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Tell us about the wildest wedding drama you've ever seen. Or hell, the worst flight you've been on. Did you ever get stuck with a shitty sandwich in first class? Let's unpack this chaos together and keep the vibes going. 3 months after that damn sandwich fiasco on Flight 917, Paris was doing its thing, charming the hell out of everyone with its twinkling lights, cobblestone streets, and the kind of romance that makes you want to puke if you're not in the mood. The city was hosting a glitzy charity summit at the Palais des Congrès, where the world's richest and smartest gathered to flex their egos and pretend they cared about saving the planet. Celeste Morgan, 38 and still a goddamn force of nature, was there to unveil Morgan Tech's latest project, an AI system to sniff out bias in customer service from hotels to airlines. Her navy blazer was sharp as a blade, her curls pinned up like a crown, and her presence made the room feel like it was holding its breath. She stood at the podium, her voice steady and commanding, laying out how her tech could call out the bullshit in systems that pretend to be fair, but screw over anyone who doesn't fit their mold. The crowd CEOs, activists, and a few too many influencers ate it up, clapping like she'd just dropped the cure for stupidity. But in the back of the room, leaning against a marble column with a glass of bourbon in hand, Julian Voss was grinning like he'd won the lottery. At 28, he was still the golden boy of Voss Global, but he'd taken on a new gig running the family's charitable foundation, mostly to prove he wasn't just a trust fund fuck-up. His blonde hair was a little less messy now, his suit a little sharper, but those green eyes still sparkled with mischief. And they were locked on Celeste. "Holy shit," he muttered to himself, watching her own the stage. "She's even hotter when she's tearing systems apart." When the session ended, Julian made his move, weaving through the crowd like a man on a mission. Celeste was surrounded by suits asking for her card, but she spotted him coming from a mile away. Her lips twitched, half annoyed, half curious. "Well, if it isn't the Caviar Crusader," she said, crossing her arms. "What's your ass doing in Paris?" "Voss." Julian flashed that grin that usually got him out of trouble. "Heard you were here, Queen of Seat 1A. Figured I'd see if you're still too badass to let me buy you that drink." Celeste snorted, but there was a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "I'm here to work, not deal with your frat boy charm. You got something worth my time, or are you just here to waste it?" "Oh, I got something," Julian said, leaning in just enough to make her notice the cedar and whiskey scent of his cologne. "Your AI project. It's fucking brilliant, but it needs cash to scale. My foundation's got the funds and I want in. Let's make some noise together." She raised an eyebrow, sizing him up. The kid had balls, she'd give him that. Most people tiptoed around her, intimidated by her resume. Forbes' Most Influential Women Times Person of the Year, runner-up the Black Tech Queen, who'd built Morgan Tech from a garage to a global powerhouse. But Julian... He looked at her like she was a challenge he couldn't wait to tackle. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice low. "Because I don't play games, Voss. You screw this up, I'll bury you." "Deal," he said, extending a hand. "But only if you stop calling me Voss. It's Julian, damn it." She shook his hand, her grip firm, her eyes never leaving his. "Don't make me regret this, Julian." The partnership kicked off faster than a New York minute, but it was no fairy tale bullshit. Their first meeting at Morgan Tech's Paris office was a masterclass in clashing egos. The conference room was all glass and steel with a view of the Eiffel Tower that screamed money. Celeste sat at the head of the table, her team, Aaliyah, her razor-sharp assistant, and a few data nerds flanking her. Julian rolled in 5 minutes late, a coffee stain on his shirt, and a grin that said he didn't give a fuck. "Nice of you to join us, Voss," Celeste said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Thought you'd be too busy yachting or whatever rich kids do." Julian plopped into a chair, unfazed. "Nah, I was busy coming up with genius ideas for your project." "You're welcome." Aaliyah stifled a laugh, but Celeste's eyes narrowed. "Let's hear it then. Impress me." Julian leaned forward, all charm and chaos. "Picture this. We launch your AI with a global campaign. A diversity flight, all minority crew, free champagne for everyone, and your tech running the show to prove it's bias-free. It'll be a fucking PR goldmine." The room went silent. Aaliyah coughed, hiding a smirk. One of the data nerds blinked like he'd just heard a toddler pitch a moon landing. Celeste leaned back, her fingers tapping the table. "That's not a strategy, Julian. That's a circus. You want me to stake my reputation on free booze and a stunt. Get your head out of your ass." Julian's grin faltered, but he doubled down. "Okay, maybe the champagne's a bit much, but the idea's solid. People need to see your tech in action, not just read about it." "People see it when it works," Celeste shot back. "Not when you turn it into a reality show. You're not running a frat party, Voss." "Julian," he corrected, leaning closer. "And I'm not trying to fuck this up. I'm saying let's make it big, bold, something that shakes shit up. Like you." The room felt 10 degrees hotter. Aaliyah raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension. Celeste held Julian's gaze, her expression unreadable. "You want to shake shit up? Bring me something that doesn't sound like it came from a trust fund brainstorm. Now." The meeting went on, but the vibe was set. Celeste was the boss, Julian was the wild card, and sparks were flying whether they liked it or not. Those sparks didn't always mean romance, though. Working together was like mixing whiskey and dynamite. Julian's ideas were either brilliant or batshit crazy, and Celeste had to play referee, shutting down his wilder pitches while secretly admiring his nerve. One afternoon, in a cramped office overlooking the Seine, Julian was pitching another half-baked plan when he knocked over a stack of Celeste's files, coffee splattering everywhere. "Oh, shit. I'm so sorry," he blurted, scrambling to grab the papers. "I swear I'm not this damn clumsy." Celeste sighed, grabbing a towel. "You're a walking lawsuit, Voss. How the hell do you run a foundation without burning it down, Julian?" he said, flashing that grin. "And I've got charm to make up for it. Admit it, you're a little impressed." "Impressed?" She laughed, a real laugh that caught them both off guard. "You're a fucking disaster, but you're not boring. I'll give you that." He handed her a salvaged file, their fingers brushing. The air shifted just for a second. "You've got strong hands," he said, his voice lower, his eyes locked on hers. "Bet they've built some serious shit." Celeste pulled her hand back, but not fast enough to hide the spark in her eyes. "And you've got a big mouth that's going to get you in trouble," she said. her tone sharp but playful. The room felt smaller, the hum of the city outside fading as their gazes held. The light from the Seine glinted through the window, catching the gold flecks in her eyes, and Julian's breath hitched. For a moment, it was just them, no egos, no bullshit. Then Aaliyah barged in, clutching her tablet. "Boss, the board's on my ass about the budget. You got a sec?" The spell broke. Celeste stepped back, smoothing her blazer. "Yeah, I'm coming." She shot Julian a look. "Try not to destroy anything else, Voss." "Julian," he called after her, grinning like he'd just won a round. But not everyone was charmed by Julian's antics. Back at Morgan Tech's New York HQ, the board was sniffing around like sharks smelling blood. Celeste had a call with them a week later, the kind of video conference where everyone's pretending to be polite, but really wants to throw punches. The chairman, a silver-haired suit named Richard Hale, leaned into his webcam, his voice dripping with condescension. "Celeste, this Voss kid, he's a liability. A spoiled brat with a rap sheet of bad press. You're risking your legacy for a fucking fling." Celeste's jaw tightened, but her voice was ice cold. "First, it's not a fling, it's a partnership. Second, I don't need your damn approval to pick my allies. Julian's foundation is bankrolling half our project, and his network's opening doors you couldn't even knock on. So back the fuck off, Richard." The board went quiet, but the tension lingered. Hale's eyes narrowed. "Just don't let him drag you down, Celeste. You've worked too hard to fuck this up." She ended the call, her fingers drumming on her desk. Hale wasn't wrong about Julian's rep tabloids loved painting him as a party boy who crashed Ferraris and dated models. But she'd seen something else in Paris, a guy who wasn't afraid to challenge her, who threw himself into her world with a reckless kind of courage. He was a pain in the ass, sure, but he was her pain in the ass, at least for now. Meanwhile, Julian was starting to get it. Working with Celeste wasn't just about writing checks. It was about keeping up with a woman who'd built an empire from nothing. Late one night, after a marathon session refining the AI's algorithm, he found her alone in the office, staring out at the Paris skyline. The city's lights danced on the glass, and her silhouette was all strength and grace, like a statue carved from obsidian. "Didn't expect you to still be here," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Thought you'd be out ruling the world or something." She didn't turn around. "World's not going anywhere. Just needed a minute." He stepped closer. His usual cockiness softened. "You okay? You've been kicking ass all week, but you look, I don't know, heavy." Celeste glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity. "Heavy's one way to put it. You ever feel like the world's waiting for you to fuck up just so they can say they were right about you?" Julian nodded, his voice quieter. "Every damn day. Everyone thinks I'm just a rich kid playing pretend. But you make me want to prove 'em wrong." She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "You're not as dumb as you look, Voss." "Julian," he said, stepping closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her. "And you're not as tough as you pretend, Celeste." The air crackled their breaths, sinking for a heartbeat. Her hand brushed his sleeve, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through him. But before anything could happen, her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She stepped back, checking the screen. "Aaliyah. Budget shit. I gotta go." Julian watched her leave, his heart pounding. "Game's not over, Queen," he muttered to himself. This was just the beginning of their dance, two people too stubborn to admit they were falling too different to make it easy. But the world wasn't going to let them figure it out without a fight. The board's warnings were just the tip of the iceberg, and soon a new player would step into the ring, ready to turn their spark into a full-blown inferno. Would Celeste let Julian in, or would she shut him out? And what the hell was going to happen with that wedding crash? Paris was a fucking tease. The city's lights glittered like they were daring you to fall in love, and the air was thick with the smell of fresh baguettes and old money secrets. It had been a month since Celeste Morgan and Julian Voss kicked off their partnership in that glass-walled office, and the tension between them was like a live wire ready to spark or electrocute them both. They'd been grinding nonstop on Morgan Tech's AI project, a system designed to expose bias in customer service. And while the work was solid, their dynamic was anything but stable. Celeste, 38, was a goddamn hurricane in a blazer, all precision and power running circles around everyone. Julian, 28, was the chaos to her control, throwing out wild ideas and even wilder grins that made her want to either punch him or something else she wasn't ready to name. Tonight, though, the office was quiet, the rest of the team long gone. The Seine sparkled outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the Eiffel Tower loomed in the distance, all lit up like a postcard. Celeste sat at the conference table, her laptop open, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she tweaked the AI's algorithm. Her navy blouse was slightly unbuttoned, her curls loosening from their bun, and the faint glow of the screen made her look like a queen holding court. Julian, sprawled in a chair across from her, was nursing a Red Bull and scribbling notes on a legal pad, his tie loose and his sleeves rolled up, showing off forearms that were frankly distracting. "Yo, you ever sleep?" he asked, tossing a crumpled Post-it at her. It bounced off her laptop, and she shot him a look that could have melted steel. "You ever shut up?" she fired back, not missing a beat. "Some of us have actual work to do, Voss." "Julian," he corrected, leaning forward with that damn grin. "And I'm working my ass off here. Check this out. I got a pitch for the launch event. We rent out an entire hotel, turn it into a living demo of your AI. Guests get treated like royalty or like shit, depending on the system's bias settings, to show how it catches discrimination in real time. Fucking genius, right?" Celeste paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. It wasn't the worst idea he'd had, hell. It was almost good. But she wasn't about to give him the satisfaction. "It's half-baked," she said, leaning back. "You're thinking spectacle, not substance. We need data, not a damn theme park." Julian groaned, running a hand through his blonde hair. "Why you gotta shit on my dreams?" "Celeste, I'm trying to make this big, something people won't forget." "Then try harder," she said, but there was a glint in her eyes, a challenge. "You're not here to play Voss. Step up or get out." He held her gaze, the air between them crackling. "Oh, I'm stepping up, Queen. Just wait." That night, the game changed. They'd been arguing over budget projections for hours, the kind of nerdy shit that had bore anyone else to death. But for them, it was foreplay. Julian was pacing, waving his hands like a conductor, while Celeste countered every point with the precision of a sniper. Finally, around midnight, she slammed her laptop shut. "Enough. I need a drink before I lose my damn mind." Julian's eyes lit up. "Now that's the best idea you've had all day." "Come on, I know a spot." She should have said no. She knew it deep down that following this cocky, too young, too charming heir anywhere was a recipe for trouble. But the stress of the project, the board's nagging, and the way Julian looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered made her say, "Fine. One drink. Don't fuck it up." He led her to a rooftop bar in the Marais, a hidden gem with velvet couches, fairy lights, and a view of the Eiffel Tower that felt like a personal gift from Paris. The air was cool, the music low and jazzy, and the bourbon was smooth as hell. They sat at a corner table, the city sprawling below them, and for the first time in weeks, Celeste let her guard down. Julian, sipping a whiskey neat, told her about the time he accidentally tanked a charity auction by bidding on the wrong item, a $50,000 vase he thought was a lamp. "I was like, who the fuck pays that much for a lamp?" he said, laughing. "Turns out nobody. I'm still paying that shit off." Celeste laughed a real belly-deep laugh that made her cheeks hurt. "You're a fucking disaster, Julian," she said, shaking her head. "How do you even function?" "Charm and dumb luck," he said, leaning closer. his voice dropping. "And lately I've been pretty damn lucky to be around you." The air shifted heavy with something unspoken. Celeste's breath caught, but she played it cool, sipping her bourbon. "Don't get cute, Voss. I'm not one of your model girlfriends." "Good," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "I don't want a model. I want a queen who scares the shit out of me and makes me want to be better." Her heart skipped, but she rolled her eyes. "You're full of it." "Am I?" He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers, sending a jolt through her. "You're the most badass woman I've ever met, Celeste. And I'm not just talking about your brain or your company. It's you, every damn thing about you." The bourbon wasn't helping. Neither was the way his thumb grazed her knuckles or the way his voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She pulled her hand back, but not fast enough. "You're trouble, Julian," she said, her voice softer than she meant. "And I don't have time for trouble." "Then make time," he said, leaning in close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. One night. No strings, no bullshit. Just us. They didn't make it back to the hotel. The walk along the Seine was a blur, cobblestones under their feet, the river glinting like liquid silver, and Julian's hand brushing hers until he couldn't take it anymore. In a shadowed alley off the Quai Voltaire, he pulled her close, his lips crashing into hers with a hunger that stole her breath. She kissed him back hard, her hands gripping his jacket like she was anchoring herself in a storm. "Fuck!" she gasped against his mouth. "This is a bad idea." "The best ones always are," he murmured, his lips trailing down her neck, sending shivers through her. They stumbled into his penthouse nearby, a sleek loft with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Paris that screamed money. The door barely closed before clothes hit the floor, her blouse, his shirt a trail of reckless desire. Julian lifted her onto a marble countertop, his hands everywhere, her nails digging into his back. "You're a goddamn wildfire." He growled, his mouth on her collarbone, her breasts, her skin burning under his touch. She arched into him, her body answering what her mind wouldn't, every thrust and moan a release of weeks of tension. The city lights blurred outside the world, shrinking to just them, raw, urgent, alive. When it was over, they collapsed against each other, breathless, the countertop cold against her skin. Celeste caught her breath, reality crashing back. "This ain't my style, Voss," she said, sliding off the counter, grabbing her blouse. Julian, still panting, grinned. "Bullshit, you fucking loved it. And it's Julian, damn it." She shook her head, but a smile betrayed her. "You're gonna be the death of me." "Worth it," he said, pulling her back for one more kiss, slow and deep, before she broke away. The next morning, Celeste was gone before Julian woke up, leaving only a post-it on his fridge. "Don't get cocky. We're not doing this again." But her scent lingered on his sheets, and he knew she was lying to him and herself. Celeste, back at her hotel, stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, her heart racing. "What the fuck are you doing, Morgan?" she muttered. She'd built an empire by staying in control, and one night with Julian Voss had her spiraling. He was too young, too reckless, too everything. She needed to shut this down fast. But Paris had other plans. At a gala the following week, hosted by some fancy-ass art foundation, Celeste was mingling with investors when a new player walked in, Isabelle Laurent, 32, a French venture capitalist with a reputation for turning startups into unicorns. Her red dress hugged her like a second skin, her dark hair fell in waves, and her smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. She made a beeline for Celeste, ignoring the crowd. "Celeste Morgan," she said, her accent smooth as silk. "I've been dying to meet the woman who's rewriting the rules of tech." Celeste, used to flattery, nodded politely. "And you are Isabelle Laurent," she said, extending a hand, her eyes lingering a little too long. "I'm investing in your AI project, and I must say you're even more impressive in person." Julian across the room saw the exchange and felt his stomach twist. "Who the fuck is that?" he muttered to Aaliyah, who was sipping a martini nearby. Aaliyah smirked. "Trouble, Voss. Better step up your game." Trouble was right. Isabel wasn't just an investor. She was a predator, and she had her sights set on Celeste. During the gala, she stuck close, offering witty banter and subtle touches, a hand on Celeste's arm, a laugh that lingered. "You deserve someone who sees your worth," Isabel said, her voice low. "Not a boy playing with his daddy's money." Celeste raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "You don't know me, Laurent. I'd like to." Isabel said, her smile a promise. Julian, watching from the bar, accidentally knocked over a tray of champagne flutes, the crash echoing through the room. "Oh, fuck, my bad," he shouted, drawing every eye. Isabel smirked, whispering to Celeste, case in point. Celeste shook her head, caught between amusement and exasperation. "You two are going to give me a damn heart attack," she muttered. But her eyes flicked to Julian, and her heart did that stupid skip again. The gala was just the start. Isabel was a game changer, a woman who matched Celeste's intellect and ambition in ways Julian couldn't. She sent Celeste invites to exclusive art shows, dropped million-dollar checks into the AI project, and never missed a chance to flirt. Julian, meanwhile, was doubling down, showing up to meetings with better ideas and fewer coffee stains, but his jealousy was a neon sign. One night he cornered Celeste outside the office. "What's the deal with Laurent? She's all over you like a fucking vulture." Celeste crossed her arms, unfazed. "She's an investor, Voss, and she's good at her job. You got a problem with that?" "Yeah, I do," he said, stepping closer. "I don't trust her, and I don't like the way she looks at you." She laughed, sharp and cold. "You don't get to tell me who I talk to, Julian. Grow the fuck up." He flinched, but didn't back down. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm just... shit. I'm crazy about you, Celeste. And I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." Her expression softened just for a second, but she turned away. "Trying's not enough. I don't have room for distractions." As she walked off, Julian watched his heart sinking. He was in deep, and now there was a new player in the game, one who wasn't playing fair. Celeste, meanwhile, was torn. Isabel was safe, polished, a match on paper. Julian was a wildfire, unpredictable and dangerous. So why the hell couldn't she stop thinking about him? Paris had lost its charm. The city's glow felt like a cruel joke, now mocking Celeste Morgan with its romantic bullshit, while her world teetered on the edge of chaos. It had been 6 weeks since that reckless, mind-blowing night in Julian Voss's penthouse, and the memory of his hands, his lips, his whispered, "You're a goddamn wildfire," still burned in her mind like a fever she couldn't shake. But Celeste, 38 and a fucking titan in the tech world, wasn't built for fevers. She was built for control, for precision, for building empires like Morgan Tech from the ground up. And Julian, he was a walking wrecking ball, threatening to tear it all down. They were still partners, grinding away on the AI project to root out bias in customer service, but the air between them was thick with unspoken shit. Every meeting was a tightrope walk, Julian's cocky grins clashing with Celeste's icy professionalism, their banter sharp enough to draw blood. The team noticed especially Aaliyah, Celeste's assistant, who'd started giving Julian side-eye like she was ready to cuss him out on her boss's behalf. But it wasn't just their personal drama screwing things up. The world was closing in, and it wasn't playing nice. The first blow came from the Morgan Tech board, a pack of suits who'd never quite gotten over the fact that a black woman was running their show. They called a video conference from New York, and Celeste, sitting in her Paris office with a view of the Arc de Triomphe, braced herself for the usual bullshit. Richard Hale, the chairman, with a face like a disappointed accountant, didn't waste time. "Celeste, we're concerned," he said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. "This Voss kid, he's dragging you down. The tabloids are eating it up. Tech queens, toy boy scandal. You're throwing away your legacy for a fucking fling. Celeste's fingers gripped her pen so hard it nearly snapped. It's not a fling, Richard, she said, her voice cold as steel. It's a partnership. Julian's foundation is funding half our project and his connections are opening doors you couldn't even knock on. So unless you've got something useful to say, back the fuck off. Hale's eyes narrowed, but he wasn't done. The board's not blind, Celeste. You're distracted. Investors are talking. You've worked too damn hard to let a spoiled brat screw it up. She leaned into the camera, her gaze lethal. I built this company from a garage while you were still kissing ass for your corner office. I don't need your permission to run it. We clear. The call ended, but the sting lingered. Celeste stared out at the Paris skyline, her reflection in the glass showing a woman who looked unbreakable but felt like she was cracking. Hale's words weren't just about business. They were a reminder of the world's rules. A black woman at the top didn't get to make mistakes, didn't get to be human. And falling for someone like Julian, that was a mistake she couldn't afford. Meanwhile, Julian was dealing with his own shitstorm. The Voss family, old money aristocrats who owned half the skyscrapers in New York, weren't thrilled about their golden boy slumming it with a tech CEO 10 years his senior. His mother, Eleanor Voss, summoned him to the family's Paris pied-à-terre, a gilded cage dripping with chandeliers and disdain. She sat in a velvet armchair, her platinum hair perfect, her voice sharp as a guillotine. Julian, this is beneath you, she said, sipping a martini. Celeste Morgan is too old, too different. She's using you to climb higher, and you're too damn blind to see it. Julian's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. You're full of shit, Mom. Celeste doesn't need me to climb. She's already at the top. She's the only one who makes me want to be more than your fucking puppet. Eleanor's eyes flashed. Watch your tone. You're a Voss. You don't throw away your future for some ambitious... Don't, Julian, cut her off. His voice low and dangerous. Say another word about her and I'm done with this family. She didn't flinch. You're done if you keep this up. No more trust fund, no more support. You'll be on your own. Fine, he said, standing. I'd rather be broke than let you control me. He stormed out, the slam of the door echoing like a gunshot. But as he walked through the Paris streets, the weight of his choice hit him. He'd just cut ties with the only life he'd known. And for what? A woman who might not even want him. Fuck, he muttered, kicking a pebble into the gutter. I'm so screwed. The real kicker, though, was Isabelle Laurent. The French investor had been circling Celeste like a shark, and she wasn't subtle about it. At a tech summit in Paris, Isabelle pulled out all the stops, gifting Celeste a rare Basquiat painting worth millions delivered to her hotel with a note for the woman who redefines art in everything she does. Dinner. Isabelle. Celeste, intrigued, despite herself, agreed to meet at a Michelin-starred restaurant, the kind of place where the plates cost more than most people's rent. Isabelle was a vision in black silk, her dark eyes locked on Celeste, like she was the only person in the room. You're extraordinary, she said over a glass of Chateau Margaux. I see you, Celeste, the vision, the strength. You deserve someone who matches that, not a boy playing with his daddy's money. Celeste sipped her wine, her expression unreadable. You're bold, Laurent. I'll give you that. But I don't need flattery, and I sure as hell don't need saving. I'm not here to save you, Isabelle said, leaning closer, her voice a velvet purr. I'm here to stand beside you. Think about it. Julian, meanwhile, was losing his damn mind. He'd heard about the dinner through Aaliyah, who'd texted him, "Your girl's whining and dining with Laurent. Better step up, dumbass." He showed up at the restaurant uninvited, looking like a man on a mission in a leather jacket and jeans. Spotting Celeste and Isabel through the window, he barged in, ignoring the maitre d's protests. "Yo, Celeste," he called loud enough to turn heads. "We got a problem with the project budget. Need you now." Celeste's eyes narrowed, but she caught the edge in his voice. "This better be good, Voss," she said, excusing herself. Outside, she rounded on him. "What the fuck is your deal, Julian? You don't get to crash my meetings." "That wasn't a meeting," he snapped, stepping closer. "That was her trying to steal you, and you're letting her. You think she's better than me?" "Fine, say it." Celeste laughed sharp and cold. "You're jealous. Grow the fuck up, Julian. Isabel's an investor and she's good at her job. You got a problem with that. Take it up with your ego. My ego." He ran a hand through his hair, his voice raw. "I'm not some rich kid playing games, Celeste. I'm fucking in love with you, and it's killing me to see her all over you." The words hung there heavy and real. Celeste's breath caught her heart pounding. She wanted to scream to tell him he was too young, too reckless, that this was a mistake. But his eyes, those damn green eyes, held her, and for a second, she couldn't look away. "You don't know what you're saying," she said finally, her voice softer. "This isn't a game, Julian. I don't have room for whatever this is." "Then make room," he said, stepping so close she could feel his heat. "Or tell me to walk away and I will." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Instead, she turned and walked back to the restaurant, leaving him standing in the Paris night, his heart on the pavement. The next day, Julian fucked up spectacularly. Trying to win Celeste back, he decided to cook her dinner at his penthouse, a grand gesture to make up for being a jealous asshole. He picked a recipe for lobster bisque, his attempt to redeem the Flight 917 sandwich disaster. But Julian, bless his heart, was no chef. Halfway through the kitchen was a war zone, pots boiling over, smoke billowing, and a fire alarm screaming like a banshee. "Fuck, I'm gonna burn Paris down," he shouted, flapping a towel at the smoke. Celeste, who'd shown up at Aaliyah's insistence. "He's trying, boss, give him a chance," walked in to find him coughing and cursing. She grabbed a fire extinguisher, put out the smoldering pan, and opened a window, all while laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "You're a fucking hazard, Voss," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Who let you near a stove?" "Julian," he corrected, grinning despite the chaos. "And I was trying to be romantic." "Okay. Sue me." She shook her head, still chuckling. "You're hopeless. But you're here," he said, stepping closer, his voice soft. "That's got to count for something." For a moment they stood there, the kitchen a mess, the air still smoky, and it felt like the world was just them. But Celeste pulled back, her smile fading. "I can't do this, Julian," she said. "Not now. Not with everything." "Everything?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Or just me?" She didn't answer, just grabbed her coat and left. Julian watched her go, the weight of her words crushing him. He'd pushed too hard, and now he'd lost her. The fallout was brutal. Celeste threw herself into work, shutting Julian out. She stopped taking his calls, redirected his emails to Aaliyah, and avoided him at meetings. The AI project moved forward, but the spark was gone, replaced by a cold efficiency that made everyone miserable. Julian, meanwhile, was spiraling. He'd cut ties with his family, burned bridges with his trust fund, and now the one person who made it all worth it was slipping away. Isabel, sensing her chance, doubled down. She invited Celeste to a private art auction, a black tie affair, where she bid millions on a Frida Kahlo painting and dedicated it to Celeste. "For the woman who paints the future," she said, her voice carrying across the room. The crowd applauded, but Celeste's smile was tight. Isabel was perfect. Smart, polished a match on every level. So why the hell did she keep picturing Julian's stupid grin at the same time the media was having a field day? A Forbes article dropped titled, "Celeste Morgan's Fall Distracted by a Toy Boy." It painted her as a CEO losing her edge, seduced by a spoiled rich kid. The board sent her a formal letter urging her to reassess her priorities. Even Aaliyah, usually her rock, looked worried. "Boss, I'm Team Celeste all the way, but this shit's getting messy," she said. "You sure about Voss?" Celeste wasn't sure about anything anymore. She sat in her hotel room, the Paris skyline mocking her with its beauty, and stared at a text from Julian. "I'm sorry I fucked up. Tell me how to fix this." She didn't reply, but her finger hovered over the screen, her heart screaming one thing while her head screamed another. The breaking point came at a project review in London, where Celeste and Julian were forced to face each other. He looked like hellbags under his eyes, his usual swagger gone. "We need to talk," he said, cornering her after the meeting. "There's nothing to say," she said, her voice flat. "This was a mistake, Julian. You're too young, too damn reckless. I can't afford to crash and burn because of you." He flinched, but his voice was steady. "I'm not perfect, Celeste, but I'm not a kid. I love you, and I'm trying to be the man you deserve. If that's not enough, then tell me to walk away and I'm gone." She looked at him, her chest tight. Every instinct told her to run to protect the empire she'd built, to choose the safe path with someone like Isabel. But his eyes, those fucking green eyes, held her, and for the first time, she didn't know what to do. "I need space," she said, finally turning away. "Don't follow me." Julian didn't. He watched her go, his heart shattering, and made a decision. If he couldn't have her, he'd prove he was more than the toy boy everyone thought he was. He'd build something of his own, something worthy of her. But the road ahead was about to get a hell of a lot rougher, and neither of them knew the storm that was coming. The air in London was heavy thick with that damp gray bullshit that made you want to stay in bed and curse the world. Celeste Morgan, 38 and still a goddamn titan, wasn't in the mood for any of it. It had been 2 weeks since she'd told Julian Voss to give her space, 2 weeks since she'd walked away from those green eyes that haunted her every damn night. She'd thrown herself into Morgan Tech's AI project like a woman possessed, working 18-hour days to drown out the noise in her head. But the noise wasn't just Julian. It was the board breathing down her neck, the tabloids spewing garbage, and Isabelle Laurent's velvet-smooth voice whispering in her ear, promising a life that made sense. Too bad her heart didn't give a fuck about sense. Celeste sat in her hotel suite, a sleek penthouse overlooking the Thames, staring at a text from Julian. She hadn't answered. "I'm sorry I fucked up. Tell me how to fix this." Her finger hovered over the screen, her chest tight. She'd built an empire by making tough calls, by cutting out anything that didn't serve her. So why the hell couldn't she cut him out? "Get your shit together, Morgan," she muttered, tossing the phone onto the bed. But before she could spiral further, her laptop pinged with an urgent email from Aaliyah, her assistant boss. "You need to see this. Forbes just dropped a bomb." She clicked the link, and her stomach sank. The headline screamed, "Celeste Morgan's empire at risk, shady charity deal with Voss Foundation exposed." The article, penned by some hack with a vendetta, claimed Celeste had funneled Morgan Tech funds into Julian's foundation to inflate her AI project's impact, skimming profits for personal gain. It was bullshit, pure and simple, but the details were damning: leaked emails, doctored financials, and anonymous sources painting her as a greedy opportunist. The stock market didn't wait for the truth. Morgan Tech's shares were already tanking down 10% in pre-market trading. "Motherfucker," Celeste hissed, slamming her laptop shut. She knew who was behind this Lexacorp, a rival tech giant that had been gunning for her since she beat them to a Pentagon contract. They'd been digging for dirt, and now they'd manufactured it. The board was going to lose their damn minds, and the media was already circling like vultures. She grabbed her phone, ready to call Aaliyah and start damage control, when another notification popped up, a breaking news alert from CNN. "Julian Voss defends Celeste Morgan in explosive interview." Her heart stopped. "What the fuck is he doing?" she muttered, clicking the link. The video loaded, and there was Julian looking like he hadn't slept in days, sitting across from a CNN anchor in a sleek studio. His tie was crooked, his hair a mess, but his eyes burned with a fire she'd never seen. The anchor, a smug guy in a cheap suit, was mid-question, Mr. Voss. The allegations suggest you and Ms. Morgan engaged in unethical financial dealings. What's your response? Julian leaned forward, his voice steady but laced with fury. My response? It's all bullshit. Celeste Morgan is the most badass woman alive, and she's built Morgan Tech into a fucking empire without cutting corners or kissing ass. These accusations are a hit job by Lexicorp, who can't stand losing to her. I'd stake my entire foundation on her integrity, and anyone talking shit about her can go straight to hell. The anchor blinked clearly, not expecting the heat. But the leaked emails are fake. Julian cut him off. I've got my team tracing them, and we'll prove it. Celeste doesn't need to cheat to win. She's too damn good for that. You want to talk shady? Talk about the assholes trying to tear her down because she's a black woman at the top. The video cut to the anchor, stammering, but Celeste didn't hear the rest. Her pulse was pounding, her hands shaking. Julian hadn't just defended her, he'd gone to war for her on live TV without asking permission. Part of her wanted to strangle him for going rogue. The other part wanted to... hell, she didn't know what. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Julian was at a dive bar in Shoreditch, nursing a whiskey and looking like a man who'd just bet his entire life on a single roll of the dice. The bar was a grimy, hole-in-the-wall, all sticky floors and neon signs, the kind of place where nobody gave a shit who you were. He'd seen the CNN clip trending on X, the comments a mix of Voss is a king and he's just simping for his sugar mama. He didn't care. He'd meant every word, and if it cost him everything, so be it. The door swung open, and Celeste stormed in her navy trench coat, billowing like a goddamn superhero cape. Heads turned, but she didn't notice her eyes locked on Julian like a missile. You, she said, pointing a finger as she marched over. Outside. Now. Julian downed his whiskey, tossed a 20 on the bar, and followed her into the alley. The London night was cold, the streetlights casting long shadows on the wet pavement. Celeste rounded on him, her voice low and lethal. What the fuck was that, Voss? You think you can just go on CNN and play hero without telling me you fucked up big time? Julian flinched, but stood his ground. I wasn't playing hero, Celeste. I was fighting for you. That article was bullshit, and I wasn't going to let it ruin you. You don't get to decide, that she snapped, stepping closer. I've been handling my own battles since before you were out of diapers. You going rogue just made it worse. Stocks are tanking, the board's losing their shit, and now everyone thinks we're in bed together, literally and figuratively. Then let 'em think it, he said, his voice raw. I don't give a fuck what they say. I love you, Celeste, and I'm not going to stand by while some corporate asshole tries to tear you down. Her breath caught his words, hitting like a punch. She'd heard him say it before in Paris, but this was different, desperate, real, stripped of his usual charm. She wanted to scream, to tell him he was making everything harder, but her heart was screaming something else. You're an idiot, she said finally, her voice softer, almost breaking. Maybe, he said, stepping closer, close enough that she could smell the whiskey and cedar on him. But I'm your idiot, and I'm not walking away unless you tell me to. The alley was silent, the city holding its breath. Celeste's eyes searched his, looking for a lie, a crack, anything to make this easier. But all she saw was him, raw, flawed, and hers. Fuck, she whispered. And then she was kissing him hard and urgent, her hands gripping his jacket like she was afraid he'd disappear. He kissed her back, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her close as the world melted away. The Thames glittered in the distance, the cold air sharp against their skin, but all they felt was each other. When they broke apart, breathless, Celeste rested her forehead against his. This doesn't fix anything, she said, but her voice was shaky, her walls crumbling. It's a start, Julian said, his grin creeping back. and I'm pretty damn good at starting shit. The next morning, Celeste dug deeper into the Forbes article, and what she found flipped the script. Aaliyah's team traced the leaked emails to a LexaCorp server confirming they were forged. But the real bombshell was buried in Julian's foundation records, which Aaliyah uncovered after some late-night hacking. Months ago, LexaCorp had offered Julian a $10 million deal to partner on a rival AI project, one that would have undercut Morgan Tech. He turned it down flat, no hesitation, and never told Celeste. The rejection email which Aaliyah forwarded was blunt. I'm with Morgan Tech. You can't buy me, and you sure as hell can't beat her. Fuck off. Celeste stared at the email, her coffee going cold. Julian hadn't just defended her on CNN. He'd been protecting her for months quietly without expecting a pat on the back. He'd chosen her over millions over his own interests, and she'd pushed him away for it. God damn it, Voss, she muttered, a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. She found him at a coffee shop near their London office, looking like he'd barely slept, his leather jacket slung over a chair. He glanced up as she approached, his expression wary. You here to yell at me again? He asked, sipping an espresso. Nah, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. I'm here to say you're still a pain in the ass, but you did good. His eyebrows shot up. Wait, is that a compliment from you? Holy shit, alert the press. Don't get cocky, she said, but her smile betrayed her. Aaliyah found your email to LexaCorp. You turned down $10 million to stick with me. Why didn't you say anything? Julian shrugged, his grin softening. Didn't think it mattered. I wasn't gonna let those assholes screw you over. You're worth more than any deal. Her chest tightened, a warmth spreading she couldn't ignore. You're fucking impossible, you know that. Yeah, but you love it, he said, leaning forward, his eyes twinkling. Admit it, Queen. I'm growing on you. She laughed, shaking her head. Like a damn fungus. The reconciliation wasn't all roses and rainbows. They had to face the fallout, angry investors, a pissed-off board, and a media frenzy that wouldn't quit. But they faced it together, shoulder to shoulder. Julian threw himself into the AI project with a focus that surprised even Celeste, his ideas sharper, his charm tempered by a new seriousness. Celeste, meanwhile, leaned on him in ways she hadn't expected, letting him see the cracks in her armor. They weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but they were moving forward. Humor helped. One night, Julian organized a sorry for fucking up dinner for the team, but the caterer screwed up, delivering a tray of sandwiches instead of steak. Are you shitting me? Julian groaned, holding up a soggy chicken sandwich. This is Flight 917 all over again. Celeste burst out laughing, grabbing one. You're cursed, Voss, but at least it's not cold this time. Julian, he corrected, tossing a napkin at her. And I'm ordering pizza. Fuck this. The team cracked up, the tension easing, and for a moment, it felt like they could handle anything. But the world wasn't done with them. Julian's family, still furious about his rebellion, was plotting something big. Isabel was waiting in the wings, her interest in Celeste far from over. And LexaCorp wasn't backing down. They were gearing up for a bigger hit, one that would test Celeste and Julian like never before. Celeste knew the road ahead was going to be a shit show, but for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. She looked at Julian across the table, his grin lighting up the room, and thought, maybe this idiot's worth the trouble. But trouble was coming, and it was going to hit like a freight train. The Cape Town night was a goddamn dream, stars blazing like they'd been hired for the occasion. The ocean whispering secrets below the cliffside venue. The air smelled of jasmine and salt, and a jazz quartet played soft, sultry notes that wrapped the crowd in a haze of romance. Celeste Morgan, 41, stood at the altar, a vision, in a white silk gown that clung to her curves like it was sculpted by angels. Her curls were loose, framing her face like a crown, and her eyes sharp, fierce, unbreakable, locked on Julian Voss, 31, who looked like he'd stepped out of a GQ cover in his black tuxedo. His blonde hair caught the moonlight, and his green eyes were wet with emotion. a grin tugging at his lips despite the nerves. They were seconds from forever surrounded by a sea of guests, tech moguls, activists, even a few Voss family members who'd grudgingly shown up. Aaliyah Celeste's ride-or-die assistant stood at the bridal party, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The priest raised his hands, his voice warm and solemn. "If anyone objects to this union, speak now, or forever hold your peace." The silence was perfect. Then, like a fucking grenade, a woman's voice exploded from the back. "I do. He's a goddamn liar." The crowd gasped, heads whipping around. Isabelle Laurent, 32, stormed down the aisle in a crimson dress that screamed danger, clutching a stack of papers like they were a loaded gun. Her dark eyes burned as she pointed at Julian. This bastard funded a project to sabotage Morgan Tech Celeste. "You're marrying a snake who's been playing you from the start." The venue erupted in chaos. A tech CEO dropped his champagne flute glass, shattering on the stone floor. Aaliyah's jaw hit the ground, her tissue forgotten. Julian's face went white. His hands raised like he was facing a firing squad. "Celeste, it's bullshit," he shouted, his voice cracking. "She's lying through her fucking teeth." Celeste's grip on her bouquet tightened, the roses trembling as she turned to him, her gaze ablade. "What the hell is going on, Voss?" Her voice was low, deadly, cutting through the whispers like a guillotine. Isabel smirked, tossing her hair. "Ask him about the Lexacorp deal. He funneled money to them to undermine your AI project, then played the hero on CNN to cover his ass. You deserve better than this lying prick." The crowd was a mess, some snapping photos, others live-streaming the drama. The priest cleared his throat, looking like he'd rather be in hell. Aaliyah stepped forward, ready to throw hands, but Celeste raised a hand, silencing her. She turned to Julian, her eyes searching his. "You got 3 seconds to explain, or I'm done." Julian's voice broke raw and desperate. "Celeste, I swear on my life it's a lie. I'd never betray you. You know me, you know me." The tension was suffocating, the stars above, mocking the wreckage below. Celeste's heart pounded, her mind racing back through every moment: the shitty sandwich on Flight 917, the penthouse in Paris, the CNN interview where he'd gone to war for her. Was it all a lie, or was Isabel the snake? The crowd held its breath, waiting for her to decide their fate. Julian took a step closer, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I turned down Lexacorp's deal. Celeste, $10 million, and I told them to fuck off because I believed in you. Those papers. They're fake, just like the Forbes hit piece, and I know who's behind it." Celeste's eyes narrowed. "Who?" He swallowed his gaze, flicking to the crowd, then back to her. "My family. They've been trying to break us up since Paris. They hired Isabel to plant this shit to make you hate me." The crowd gasped again, louder this time. Isabel's smirk faltered, her grip on the papers tightening. "That's absurd," she said, but her voice wavered, a crack in her armor. Celeste turned to her, her voice ice-cold. "Show me the papers, Laurent." Isabel hesitated, then handed them over, her confidence crumbling. Celeste scanned the documents, emails, financial records, all neatly forged to paint Julian as a traitor. But she'd seen enough corporate bullshit to spot a fake. The timestamps were off, the signatures inconsistent. She looked up, her eyes locking on Isabel. "You really thought I'd fall for this crap," she said, tossing the papers to the ground. "You're good, Laurent, but you're not that good." Isabel's face flushed, but she held her ground. "I was trying to protect you, Celeste. He's not worth enough." Celeste cut her off, her voice a whip. She turned to Julian, her expression softening just a fraction. "You knew about this? Your family's plan?" Julian nodded, his voice low. "Found out a week ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you dragged into their shit show. I'd rather lose you than let them hurt you." The crowd was silent now, every eye on Celeste. Her heart was a war zone, anger, betrayal, love, all fighting for control. She stepped closer to Julian, her gown rustling like a battle flag. "You're a pain in the ass, Voss," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But you're my pain in the ass." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Celeste wasn't done. She turned to the guests, her voice carrying like thunder. "This man's been fighting for me since a shitty sandwich in first class. He's fucked up, sure, but he's mine. We're getting married, and y'all can go to hell if you don't like it." She grabbed Julian's face, kissing him hard, her lips fierce and unyielding. He kissed her back, his arms wrapping around her, the world fading to just them. The jazz band, sensing the moment, struck up a triumphant note, and the crowd went wild, clapping and whooping. Aaliyah threw her hands up, yelling, "That's my girl!" Isabel, defeated, slipped away, leaving a note with Aaliyah. "You win, Celeste. He's yours." The priest, finally recovering, cleared his throat. "Well, shall we continue?" "Hell yeah," Julian said, his grin back in full force. They exchanged vows, their voices steady, despite the tears. And when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Julian dipped Celeste like they were in a goddamn movie, kissing her until the crowd roared. The aftermath was a whirlwind. The wedding made headlines not for the drama, but for the love story that survived it. From sandwich to soulmates, Celeste Morgan and Julian Voss, "Defy the Odds," screamed a Vogue feature. Morgan Tech's stock rebounded, the Lexicorp scandal exposed as a desperate smear. The Voss family, humiliated, issued a public apology, and Eleanor Voss, Julian's mother, showed up at their honeymoon villa in Santorini with a grudging olive branch. "You're not what I expected," she told Celeste, her voice stiff. "But you make him better." Celeste smirked, sipping a martini. "Damn right I do." Julian and Celeste didn't just survive, they thrived. They launched the Seat 1A Foundation, a nonprofit to support women of color in tech, funded by their combined fortunes. Julian, no longer just a trust fund kid, started his own AI startup, leaning on Celeste's mentorship to make it legit. She, in turn, learned to let go, to laugh more, to live. The shitty sandwich from Flight 9117 became their private joke, a reminder of where it all began. At their first anniversary party, Julian gifted her a first-class ticket with a note, "Seat 1A. No damn sandwiches this time." Celeste laughed, tossing it back. "You're still a fucking menace, Voss." "Julian," he corrected, pulling her close, "and you love it." The legacy of their love wasn't just personal. The Seat 1A Foundation changed lives, funding scholarships, incubators, and mentorships for women who'd been told they didn't belong. At a gala, years later, a young black coder approached Celeste, tears in her eyes. "I'm here because of you," she said. "You showed me I could sit in Seat 1A. Celeste hugged her, her own eyes misty. "Damn right you can, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Isabel surprisingly became an ally. She sent Celeste a painting as a wedding gift with a note, "I was wrong. You two are unstoppable." She even joined the foundation's board, her sharp mind a valuable asset, though she never stopped teasing Julian. "You're lucky she didn't pick me Voss," she'd say, smirking. "Lucky's my middle name," he'd shoot back, winking at Celeste. The story ended where it began, in the sky. Celeste and Julian, now partners in every sense, boarded a first-class flight to Tokyo for a tech summit. They sat side by side, no longer in seats 1A and 2B, but together, hands entwined. The flight attendant, a young woman with a bright smile, brought them lobster bisque, and Julian grinned. "Told you I'd make it up to you, Queen." Celeste rolled her eyes, but her smile was radiant. "You're still trouble, Julian, but you're my trouble." He leaned in, kissing her softly. "And you're my everything." The plane soared into the night, the stars outside a mirror of the ones they danced under in Cape Town. Their love had survived sandwiches, scandals, and a wedding crash that shook the world. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. This wasn't just a love story. It was a reminder that the best things in life come from the messiest moments. A shitty sandwich, a reckless kiss, a fight worth fighting. So, what's your messy moment? What's the spark that changed your life? Love doesn't need to be clean or easy. It just needs to be yours. Holy crap, did that wedding twist blow your mind? From a sandwich in first class to a love that flipped the world upside down, Celeste and Julian proved that the best stories are the ones you fight for. Smash that subscribe button and spill in the comments. What's the wildest love drama you've lived through, or hell, the worst flight you've ever had? Let's keep this crazy ride going.